All right, you need to relax. Um,
You know, I also had another observation as well. I wanted to get your opinion on this because this was something listening to both Sheehan and Goldie's podcast, and both of them get the sense they played the clip of Jack Del Rio speaking. Well, he was being asked a question kind of specific to the scheme,
okay.
and Jack Del Rio, he pretty much says, and you know, 'cause he hates talking, so he goes, well, I'm not much interested in talking about scheme. He said, I'll let Coach talk to you about whatever you know he likes. So Sheehan and Goldie both kind of took that as he's throwing jabs at Ron, and because Ron does, you know, he gives more descriptive kind of answers, and Jack doesn't. And then and according to Galdi, I don't remember much, but Galdi says this is the first time he's made like one of these jabs towards Rivera, and they feel like it's jabs at how Rivera talks, and basically they would. He it seems like he would just rather Rivera shut up when it comes to scheme stuff.
That that is an interesting theory. Um, Immediately when I hear things like that, I think of like an alternative perspective. Yes, they're noticing something that's quite possibly true, but in my eyes, I would also counter argue like Ron Rivera has been, while he's been tight-lipped in certain cases, he's also been very informative in how he presents information to the media and to the fans. And he does that on a weekly basis on certain topics, not every topic, but he does this thing on certain topics. And I'm not necessarily certain that when Jack Del Rio says something like that, he's upset or annoyed at Ron Rivera. I'm thinking in my head, it's quite possible that he's deferring because he's just more comfortable in the coordinator role that he's in. Like, what is the purpose of him actually just saying, okay, I'm gonna break everything down? That's not his job. His job is to coach, and his job is to coach a
Right.
unit. It's not to coach the whole team. And so deferring to Ron Rivera in that instance is that will be the counter argument that I would have for somebody like that in that specific instance is that I'm not saying it's impossible for them to be right, but I am saying it sounds a little far fetched right now because of the fact that Del Rio is probably much more comfortable in that coordinator spot where he's not obligated to give those answers like Ron Rivera is. How do you feel
Yeah,
about it?
I definitely agree. Um, that's a great way to look at it. Because I really hadn't thought too much about that side of the perspective. But I can also see an instance where Jack Del Rio, you know, does probably feel a little annoyed by some of the things that Ron Rivera does. Like it wouldn't shock me at all because Jack is a pretty strong. He's bull. He's a stubborn dude. So you know,
You can
Ron
tell by
seems
them
to be
tweets.
a little bit more. Right, exactly. Ron seems to be a little bit more liberal, and you know, not even in terms of like politics, but
Yeah.
just liberal in general. Whereas Jack is conservative in you know that aspect as well, like not just the politics, but when it comes to like talking and giving away his things, he's going to lean more conservative. So I can see where you know the two would differ on that, but I don't think it's a disrespect thing. I don't think it's coming from like a level of disrespect or anything. I just think it's you know at most it just comes off as Jack may feel you know slightly annoyed or perturbed sometimes by it.
Well, let me ask you this question then, because we're not going to say it's a we could dig a little bit deeper into this. We're not going to sit here and act like these instances don't fester, right? Like if assuming that these things are, I would assuming they're more so annoyed and protrude and things like that. How much longer can they be together? Now, I'm not saying that there's going to be a head and things like that, but eventually, sometimes it has to be addressed. It has to be flat out addressed.
Yeah,
And I want to know,
right.
like, what would be the result of them addressing the issue, them talking about it? Does it just get swept under the rug? Does it, all right, well, how do we move on from here? And they split their separate ways? Or is this like all right, I said what I had to say. I respect your side. Now you know where I'm coming from, but this is where I stand type thing, and we'll just continue to do us. Like, how do you think this moves on?
So here's the thing, like, and this was something I kind of thought about in the back of my mind when both of the hirings were first announced back last year. Jack Del Rio was a former head coach, So that's always a thing. Like, he was a head coach a couple of times in the league, and now he comes back down to an assistant coach. So, and Jack is also, he's brought in accomplished defenses literally every stop he's been in. So you kind of feel like Jack does have like more of an ego than the average coordinator out there, because a lot of them haven't been with Jack's been. And him and Ron are essentially peers, so it's not like he looks up to Ron or anything. They more so respect each other as co-workers, and they've been around each other for years. So you got to think that if there was to be some kind of divorce or resolution that comes to something like that, it'll be more of a mutual parting. Whereas maybe Jack wants more, and it's possible, because if Jack keeps putting up the numbers that he does with this team, I would not be shocked if another team wanted to pull him as a head coach. So he may have bigger aspirations than just being with us for now. So you also got to look at it from that point of view.
I agree, and let's see. Jack is 58 years old. So if he wanted to, he can have that one last hoorah if he wanted to, and get that head coaching gig somewhere. And also, I'm not gonna lie to you, it just popped up in my head. It wasn't something I was thinking about before. But if he produces a top 5 defense against the schedule that we have this year, he is going to be back on the market as a head coaching candidate. No matter what happens record wise. If they're a top 5 defense, he's right back up there. They're going to be asking him, what'd you learn after your previous experiences as head coach?
Right.
Because if things work out, and if your answer sounds good to me, I'm gonna hire your ass. Like, that is.
I mean, Tom Coughlin was still getting jobs at an old age. So I mean, if Jack Del Rio is still producing top 5 defenses, I wouldn't be shocked at all if he gets head coaching calls. But he wouldn't be the only one either. I mean, you got to look at the other guys on the staff, like the DB's coach. I wouldn't be shocked if he, even though he may take a step up as a D coordinator first before he makes the jump to a head coach. But I mean, this is what Doc talked about the other day with. I mean, not to deviate too much from our topic, but Doc talked about the other day with the Mike Shanahan thing about how, the coach, look at the guys that's coaching in the league now from his staff. So if you start to see the numbers start to look like this for the Washington football defensive staff, you can start to see this staff start to produce those numbers of head coaches. But will anyone succeed, Ron Rivera or not? But again, with Jack Del Rio, like I said, if that was the divorce that was going to happen, I can see it going that way. Or maybe Jack just makes a lateral move and goes defensive coordinator somewhere else.
Whole hard in the trenches, ask a nigga what he benching, triple digits, nigga, don't forget to mention. Whole hard in the trenches, ask a nigga.